Welcome to your Crochet for Beginners video for your Christmas pumpkin amigurumi. In this video we're going to look at part 1, which is the body, the main cake of the pudding. You're going to start by making a slip knot. So that is essentially like you're tying a knot, only you don't let that yarn tail pull through. Then pop that onto your hook and tighten it so that it sits nicely on your hook. It moves nicely up and down the neck, but not too loose and not too tight. You're going to chain 2, which is yarning over and pulling through the loop on your hook. You'll want to twist your hook so it's going through the chain at the same shape that the hook makes. Into your second chain from your hook, not counting the loop on your hook, you're going to work 6 double crochets, which means inserting your hook, no yarn over before you go in, then yarning over and pulling that back through just the chain. Then yarning over with your 2 loops on your hook, yarning over to create 3 loops and then pulling through those 2. So inserting, pulling up a loop, which is yarning over and pulling back through just the centre, so you end up with 2 loops on your hook, yarning over and pulling through 2. Here you can see I'm popping a stitch marker into the middle of my crochet, into that second chain from hook that I'm working my stitches into. This is just so I can identify that middle nice and easily. Then going to complete 4 more stitches into that centre. So inserting my hook into the middle, yarning over, pulling back through the middle, just that one, so I have 2 loops on my hook, yarning over and pulling through those 2, making sure to do so one at a time, so not to pull through the 2 stitches through the 1 loop. You want to make sure you're always pulling just that 1 loop through the 2 stitches. To identify your stitches, I like to twist my circle onto its side so I can see the stack of V's. Your V's will work round and it will start to look a bit like a snail. I like to count back from my hook around to the 6th stitch or the first stitch that you did, and then insert my hook underneath both sides of the stitch. It may look as if the top of that V is slightly twisted towards you, but you do want to go underneath both parts of that V. You're then going to complete 2 double crochets, so going through that full process of inserting your hook, pulling back through, yarning over and pulling through 2, you're going to do that whole process twice. That's known as an increase stitch, or it can be written into patterns as doing 2 double crochets into each stitch. It entirely depends on how your pattern is written. In this pattern, doing 2 double crochets into each stitch. In order to get the correct maths for a double crocheted animal / amigurumi project, you're going to be working in multiples of 6 stitches. So your first round is 6, your second round will be 12. To achieve the 12 stitches, you need to do 2 stitches into each stitch. Make sure you are capturing both parts of the top of that stitch and working into that at the same time. If you only work through the back loop, for instance, you're going to see a bar form across the front of your work. If you work through the front loop, this is slightly better, but it's just not going to be as strong as when you work through that 1 loop, it pulls on it and creates a gap. If you work through both, it will be a nice, strong final shape. For your third round, you're now going to want to end up with 18 stitches, which for each, so if you think of your circle as multiples of 6, that will help you keep track in your mind of where you're at. So your first round, you had 6 1s. Your second round, you had 6 2s. For round 3, you want to be creating 6 3s. In order to do that, you want to do 1 stitch and then 2 stitches. 1 double crochet into a stitch, then into the next stitch you'll do 2. This will help create your extended circle without it buckling in on itself. For your 4th round, you therefore want to be working in a multiple of 4, 6 times around, so that you don't get your increases stacked on top of each other, which creates more of a hexagon look and you'd be able to see it in this really ugly kind of pattern. You want to stagger your increases. A lot of patterns will get you to do all of your increases at the end of the stitch section, but I just don't think this looks as nice. So what I do is on my even rows, I do my increases in the middle. So I will do 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets is my increase, and then 1 double crochet. Working that repeat 6 times around, so you end up with 2 double crochets next to each other. For counting your rows, you will be able to see on the right side each of these individual layers lumped together. Can you see here where the start of the stitches starts to kind of snail out around? That is the start of your round. Each one of these individual bumps counts as 1 round. When you get to that last round, you'll see that there's a bump and then there is also the top of the stitch. Bear in mind when you're counting that when you do your next round, you go around the top of that stitch, so you don't want to be counting it as 2 separate rows. You want to be counting the bottom of the stitch only. Where your pattern starts to snail around, you'll be able to see, hopefully quite clearly, where the next round starts into the beginning of your round. From there, if you have lost yourself and you haven't put your stitch marker in, you should be able to count up from that stitch. It will start to swoop round sort of diagonally, but they will stack on top of each other and you'll be able to count your stitches up so you can find the start of your round again. For your next 3 to 4 rounds, you want to be working 1 double crochet into the top of each stitch, depending on how round or how squat you want your poem to be. If you want it to be more of a perfect sphere, do 4 rounds. If you want it to be a bit flatter, do 3. Next we're going to look at the decrease stitches. There are 2 ways in which you can decrease, both of which work just as well as each other, but they have a slightly different final look. This is the double crochet 2 together, DC2 tog. That means you go into the start of your stitch as if you're going to complete a double crochet. So here it's going to repeat for you. So insert and pull up a loop as if to double crochet. Then insert your hook into the next stitch along so you have 3 loops on your hook. Then yarn over and pull through 3. That is your double 2 crochet together. This version is called your invisible decrease. That means you're going to work just through the front loop only, making sure that you come up through the middle of the stitch, so you're only working through the front loop, not the back loop too. Then tilt your hook and go through the front of the next stitch along. Yarn over and come back through both of those 2 bits so you end up with 2 loops on your hook, then yarn over and pull through the 2 loops as if you were doing a double crochet. Here you can see it again. Insert your hook under the front loop only, not both parts like you're used to. So rather than going through straight to the back, you're going to go through and up through the middle of the stitch. So through the front and up through the middle, coming from the front of the stitch, not coming down through the middle. Yarn over and pull through both of those 2 fronts. And then you're going to yarn over again and pull through the 2 loops on your hook, much like your double crochet. Here you can see the differences between those 2 stitches. On the left you can see your double crochet 2 together. Can you see how there's 3 strings over it where you had your 3 loops that you pulled through? Whereas on the right you can see the invisible decrease. This looks like more so the double crochet stitch on its own. This looks much neater and at the end of the day is less noticeable than if you did the double crochet 2 together. But honestly, it doesn't matter. It is much up to you for your discretion which you prefer to do. Going to continue your round by doing a double crochet into the next stitch. And you'll complete the sequence double crochet, decrease of your choice, double crochet 6 times until you've got right round to the beginning and you have 18 stitches. Likewise, when you're increasing, you're working in a multiple of 6. So you will be doing, for this one, because you're going from 24 stitches down to 18 stitches, you want to be working in multiples of 3 stitches, bearing in mind that the decrease stitch is joining 2 stitches together. That might be a little bit confusing, but I promise you it will make sense eventually. For your next round, you're going to do a double crochet followed by a decrease stitch of your choice. Again, you're going to do this 6 times. This time you're working in multiples of 2 because you're taking it down from 18, 3 times 6, down to 12, 2 times 6. So you're working in sets of 2 stitches with your decrease stitch joining 2 stitches together from your previous round. So you'll be going from a multiple of 3 to a multiple of 2 because you're decreasing, joining 2 stitches together. Hopefully that's starting to make a bit more sense. Once you finish this round, this is the body of your pudding complete. You could decrease to take it down to 6 stitches. If you so desire, that's absolutely fine. So you'll just do a decrease in each one, but you can finish here. Once you're finished, you can tuck all of your ends in and then you'll stuff into the next stage. Join me in the next video for part 2, your Christmas pudding amigurumi, the icing.